Arizona basketball gets its third assistant coach, and this is going to be the best coaching staff of the Tommy Lloyd era.
You are Locked On Wildcats, your daily podcast on the Arizona Wildcats. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Thanks for keeping it Locked On Wildcats and making this your first listen of the day. I am your host, Mike Luke. Today's episode is brought to you today by FanDuel. Check it out. Right now, new customers can get $250 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. Check it out, FanDuel. All right, now, Arizona has its third assistant coach. We're going to talk about Brandon Chappell. We're going to talk about recruiting, territories, all of that stuff. But first, I got to give this coaching staff, and we've talked about it before. I got to give Tommy Lloyd a lot of credit here because, listen, for the last couple of years, Steve Robinson has been on staff, and again, he's done some good things, but Arizona was dealing from a disadvantage in that he was not a recruiter. I mean, he just wasn't. He was a guy that he knew Caleb Love pretty well. So I give him credit for that. But other than that, I don't know that I can really give him a ton of credit. He didn't really recruit, and at the same time, that was basically left to Jack Murphy. So we're gonna have to see how that one does play out. But as far as what Chappell does, Chappell is he is going to be a tireless recruiter for the U of A. And not only is he going to be a tireless recruiter, he's going to be the type of player or the type of coach that is going to make life easier for people like Murph, make life easier for people like TJ Benson, and here's kind of how it works is that, TJ Benson has Arizona. He's the one that is basically in charge of this entire state. Then you got Jack Murphy, who's in charge of California, who's in charge of all the clutch kids, who's also in charge of the international and the game scouting. So there's like I said, there's that. Then you've got somebody like Brandon Chappell, who's going to be kind of that jack of all trades recruiter. He's got a lot of connections in Texas. That's going to be big for Arizona. Not only does he have a lot of connections in Texas, he also has shown that he is a pretty good recruiter with a pretty good reputation about him as well. And he's known Jack Murphy for a long time, and I think that's something that you got to be fairly excited about. Is that you watch him and Murph's vouching for him, and that's a big thing. If Murph is vouching for you, then I am going to take that as that's a very good thing. He's known him for quite a while. They worked at NAU together, and again, he's kind of come full circle. And here's where we are at this point. Okay, so the first thing that he's going to do, and he's going to hit the ground running, I'm sure, is he's going to be introducing himself to all the players, all the recruits, getting to know each other, and he's also going to be that guy that some players can kind of lean on from time to time. And Arizona is going to they're going to up their recruiting ante. In my opinion, they are going to start offering more kids, and I think at that point, then, if you're offering more kids, I think that you got to have three guys that are intimately involved in all of this, and I think that's exactly what you have in somebody like Brandon Chappell, is that he's going to be intimately involved. And we're going to talk about it in a minute here. The 2026 class and the 2027 class, you are looking at a lot of offers in 2026. You're looking at a Nikina Alozi. You're looking at a Taja Riza. You're looking at a Christian Collins. You're looking at a Cam Holmes. You're looking at players like that. I mean, there's a lot of dudes that have been offered by the U of A, and that's something that you got to keep. That's something that you got to keep in mind. You need to have as many hands on deck for those players as possible, and I think Arizona's going to do a very, very good job of that. So, like I said, I think that you're going to be looking at a number of you're going to be looking at a number of players that are going to need to be recruited, and so let's talk about it a little bit. In 2026, right now, you're looking at least 6 guys that have been offered, and I know we kind of kid about it, but that's a lot more than Tommy Lloyd's had in the past. I mean, that's a lot more than he's had in the past, and that he's had players that, or he's had years where it felt like he offered 2 or 3 players, and that's like I said, I just don't, I don't believe I don't believe that's enough. I believe that Arizona has to offer more guys, and I think that we are at that stage now where he is going to start offering more guys, and I think that that's something that, we should be in a pretty good spot. So let's talk about it. Akina Olozi, that is going to be TJ Benson's. That's going to be TJ Benson's baby right there. And then Cam Holmes, Cam Williams. Those are all guys that all have committable offers, and it's something that, I think you look at and you're kind of like, all right, well, what's that next step then for the U of A? And again, I think that you want to try to get that class done as quickly as possible. If you get that class done as quickly as possible, then you can kind of move ahead to 2027. But I do think you're going to start seeing a lot of players that are going to be offered, and they're going to be offered earlier. And I am all for that because I think it makes your job easier. And that's kind of where I'm at with this one, is that you want to have something that makes your job easier. I think for too long, and again, Tommy Lloyd's the man. So again, I'm not dismissing Tommy Lloyd, but how do I put this? He's a guy that Tommy Lloyd is a guy that I don't know that he necessarily sometimes has the best reads on players. And if you've got another player, if you got somebody else in there as well, I think that makes life a little bit easier for you. So there's obviously that. I do think that we are also kind of at the stage too where you also have a situation where you could also probably be getting some help in state. In state is absolutely loaded right now, and I think that's something that I think people have to get. Is that this is a loaded in-state class, and TJ Benson can only be in one place at so many times, and that's and I think that's where you're going to see a little bit of a. I think that you're going to see something that is a little bit. Come on. Sorry about that. I think you're kind of in something where it's a little bit. So we'll find out. But the other thing, too, is that where is Arizona in the grand scheme of things when it comes to Chappell, and what can he bring? Can he get those recruiting classes over the top? It's not that Arizona wasn't recruiting really, really well already. I think the thing, though, that you have to look at, though, and you have to say to yourself is, can Arizona get better? And I think that's really what you're kind of looking at. Can Arizona get better? And I think they're going to be able to, especially with Chappell. We'll see exactly how he fits in. But again, he's a guard. He's the best hooper on this roster. Ex-hooper, and Kendrick Perkins gave him a shout out, which I thought was pretty cool. Kendrick Perkins Kendrick Perkins played, grew up with him. They went to Ozen High School. I remember Kendrick Perkins. He was my year in high school, obviously with that LeBron James class, and that's something that's obviously good. Now we're going to talk a little bit about where we are now with Arizona, and what kind of this roster could look for a little bit going forward. But first, FanDuel, my friends, check it out, FanDuel. All right, the NBA playoffs are in full swing, and every night delivers highlight-worthy performances, major momentum shifts, and can't-miss moments. Whether it's a game-winning shot or a breakout player, there's never been a better time to get in on the action. Now, here's the cool thing. FanDuel makes it easier to stay in the game before tip-off and live with player props, personnel, performance trends, and same-game parlays. Fans have way more ways than ever to play smart and win big. Here's the cool thing about it, too. You can show, you can bet in-game. And that's a lot of times when you can be like, all right, I think I got a little bit of a vibe that this team could be a little bit better than this team is probably playing a little bit more than or better than I think people are giving them credit for. And again, FanDuel says get in here and get that. And again, how could $200 in bonus bets add to the excitement if your $5 bet hits? I mean, it's pretty much that simple. New to FanDuel, it's the perfect time to sign up. Head to FanDuel.com and place your first $5 bet. If it wins, you'll get $200 in bonus bets. Make every moment more with FanDuel, official sports betting partner of the NBA. Thanks for giving it a Locked On Wildcats and making this your first listen of the day. I'm your host, Mike Luke. All right, now, we've talked about this roster and what it's going to look like for next year, and I think that's something that this should be a fairly decent roster for the University of Arizona, but you're going to be losing a lot of different players. You're going to be losing a lot of guys, and I think that's why it's imperative to have all hands on deck. You look at the players that Arizona is going to lose next year, and there are quite a, like I said, there's quite a few. The first one that you're going to lose, obviously, is Jaden Bradley. So you've got to be able to get a player in there that that can be that replacement, and whether that is an Akino Lozi, whether that is a Mason McGee. I like Mason McGee a lot. I don't know that he's going to be ready for that at that point. That's obviously one that you have to look at. So you're going to have to replace that. You're most likely going to have to replace Braden Burries at the 2. Braden Burries is likely a one and done. So who can be that shooting guard? Can it be Taj Ariza? Can it be Cam Holmes? Now, somebody like Murph, he's always going to be on his game, and that's kind of so. But having somebody that can kind of supplement that's going to be something that will help out Arizona a great deal. So you got to be excited about that possibility. Cam Holmes is another one that's going to be a TJ guy, but you got to remember all these dudes are national players, and I think that's where it's. I think that's where you've got to look at it, and you got to say that this is all. These are national players, and sometimes if you're a guy like Jack Murphy, your hands are stretched, or whatever it is, your arms are stretched a little thin, having to do a lot of different stuff. So if you got somebody else in there that can help them, somebody that can relate, that obviously helps a great deal. So there is that. Then again, you look at the Taj Arizas, the Christian Collins. Those guys are going to be able to go absolutely anywhere they want. They are they can, like I said, they can go pretty much, like I said, anywhere they want to go to. So we will find out how that plays out, but it's going to be better to have coaches like that, like like I said, like a Brandon Chappell that will be able to help. And then you look at some other guys, like Cam Williams, for example. Cam Williams, he is I love Cam Williams. I think he's an NBA player. I think that it's difficult to not see him in the NBA because he's 6'9" and he can really shoot. I mean, those guys do not, you don't generally find a ton of guys like that. He's one of those guys. So you find somebody like that can shoot. He's 6'9". He moves well. I mean, and some of these dudes are one and done. So that's something that's going to come into play. And then you look at some of the other guys, and this is, like I said, this is a little bit of a recurring theme here. But you look in the 2027 class, and some of these, you got Bruce Branch and you got Darius Wobbington. Both those guys are obviously in state. Those are going to be TJ guys. But then you got a Jason Gardner Jr. Jason Gardner Jr. is going to be a very fascinating player to watch and how this all does unfold, because he's a top 25 player in the country. Now, that is one thing Tommy Lloyd does like doing, is he likes slow playing players or slow playing people. So that's but I would imagine that's going to be one that Arizona's going to be in on. I could see Brandon Chappell doing that. But the big thing is that you need to start looking at Texas. You need to start looking at Texas. That's where this man has made his bones. Like I said, he played at Lamar, was a very good player at Lamar. He's from Ozen. He's from Beaumont. And he's risen his way up the ranks. Like I said, he was a grad assistant at NAU with Murph. He's risen up the ranks. He got to Texas. He was one of their lead recruiters, and now he's at Arizona. And all these guys are, they're young, they're driven. And in a case of Murph, he's kind of a confidant for Tommy Lloyd. And that's something that I think a lot of coaches, and that's something that I think a lot of people are just they don't necessarily give, necessarily the due credit for is that having somebody in there that is a hardworking person, but at the end of the day, he's also going to be somebody that Tommy Lloyd can shoot ideas off of. That's Jack Murphy. Jack Murphy's always going to be that guy. So again, all these pieces kind of fit, and I think that's what's exciting about this is that all these pieces fit, and going forward. You wonder, you're kind of like, all right, what is that next step then? And we're gonna find out. But I do believe now that Arizona is in a situation where they are going to be able to recruit, and they're going to be able to recruit very well for the foreseeable future. The other part, too, where it's going to really help out with somebody like Brandon Chappell is the transfer portal. Because, again, Arizona's still going to be trying to pick kids out of the portal. And in the portal, there's a couple things that really ring bells, as the kids would say. The first thing is you got to have money. These kids want to get paid. You've got to get paid. You've got to get paid, and you've got to be able to, how do I put this? You've got it. That's just kind of the way it is. But you've also got to have connections. Having connections is something that, that really works in the recruiting scene, in the portal scene. Knowing somebody, knowing how something looks, knowing how they look when they step into a living room, that's a big thing. You can't really minimize that. And I think that's why, if you're Arizona, you're just kind of like, all right, well, let's see what we can do. Arizona is also going to have a good NIL. I believe going forward, Arizona is going to have a top 10 to 15 NIL in the country. Now, again, it can always be better, but I do think that Arizona is definitely on the upswing there, and you can see that by the players that they're offering. You don't get some of the players they offer without having a without having a decent NIL and being able to scrap together stuff. Like I said, Koa Pete could get a lot of money from a lot of different places, but Arizona was obviously very competitive with it. The other thing, too, that was very competitive about it is that Arizona's now in the situation where, it's not going to get, quote unquote, pushed around anything when it comes to NIL. So there is that. Now, we need to talk a little bit about where everything is then with Arizona football as well, because NIL is a little bit different, obviously. But first, Upwork, my friends, Upwork. All right, here's the deal. Scaling your business requires the right expertise at the right time with Upwork. You can find specialized freelancers in marketing, development, design, and more. Experts ready to help you take your business to the next level. Upwork gives businesses flexibility by connecting them with top freelance talent across multiple industries, including IT, AI, web development, and marketing. Whether you need extra hands for a project or a long-term partner, Upwork makes hiring simple and affordable. It works. Finding the right talent. If you need help with a marketing campaign, Upwork can connect with a freelance expert who delivered incredible results. Fast and easy. Again, posting a job is free and simple, and within a few days with multiple qualified candidates to choose from. Visit Upwork.com right now and post your job for free. That's Upwork.com to connect with top talent and grow your business immediately. Check it out. Let them do the heavy lifting for you. Thanks for keeping it locked on Wildcats and making this your first listen of the day. Locked on your team every day. All right, we're going to talk a little bit of Arizona football now. Something that I think people need to understand when it comes to football in the U of A is that basketball NIL is a lot easier than it is football NIL. When it comes to basketball, you got 12 to 15 players on a roster. It's that, that's what it is. You got 12 to 15 players. And you can, let's say you got an $8 million payroll or whatever the case may be. That's what it is. So, but with football, you look at some of these ones and you got $25 million payrolls. You look at Ohio State, you look at Oregon, you look at schools like that. I mean, they have a lot of money. Arizona's never going to have that. Arizona's always going to have to find kind of bargain deals. Occasional kid, you're going to be able to pay him a lot of money, but by and large, you're going to have to really kind of work the system and find diamonds in the rough. Now, I am going to say that I think Arizona did a fairly good job in the transfer portal this past offseason. I think, like I said, I think getting Chris Hudson on the cheap was good. I think he's going to be Arizona's number one wide receiver. I also think getting somebody like a Luke Wysong and a Javin Watley, I think those were very resourceful picks. So if you're a school like Arizona, you can still be good. It's just going to be a lot harder because the main teams are in. It's not like in basketball where the big teams are in the Big Ten and the SEC. Big Ten basketball sucks. It always will. When it comes to football, though, it's different just because all the money is consolidated in one place. So, there's an opportunity for maybe a team to be able to, like, I hate to say this, maybe an ASU to be able to kind of run things in the Big 12 because Dilly's so awesome. But at the end of the day, they're also not going to be getting a lot of five-star kids because they just don't have the money for them. That is what it is. And I don't know that revenue sharing is really going to change much. As a matter of fact, I don't think it's going to change anything. I think that with revenue sharing, that there's going to be a certain point where you reach where, yeah, you can give kids a certain amount of money, but then you're also just going to be able to pay kids more with the NIL. So it doesn't really change anything there. It just gives you kind of a bottom line, which is better than nothing. But at the same time, it's also kind of, like I said, it just kind of is what it is. But Brent Brennan's going to have to be resourceful when it comes to that. Like I said, I think he did a very good job with the wide receivers. I think he did a good job with the running backs. The big money ones, though, the ones that are going to be hard to get are always going to be on the line, and that's where I think we got to see it if Arizona is on the line. Where Arizona's on the line. And that's where, that's also where kids get paid. That's also where they make money. So you got to be resourceful there as well. But everything, too, with football is definitely a one-year proposition type thing because, again, kids can leave. Now, you could say that's the same as basketball, but at the same time, Arizona's got a pretty good feel for being able to hold on to certain guys in basketball because Arizona basketball is a top 10 to 15 program. The kids get paid well. They like it here. It's a lot easier sell than it is for something, say, like football where you've got a coach that nobody knows really if he's going to be here that much longer, whatever the case may be, and kids are going to look around. Now, like I said, the one thing, though, I got to give this coaching staff credit is that they did a very good job. They did a very good job of being able to hold on to a lot of kids. Like I said, Penn State was very interested in Hudson. You had some other guys in there as well that the big boys came calling, but Arizona was able to hold firm, and I think that's what was exciting about all of this for the Wildcats. And like I said, I could be drinking the Kool-Aid, probably am. I actually think the offense is going to be fairly decent this coming season. I think they're going to be able to get the ball out sooner. The line obviously scares me. I get all of that, but you've got a quarterback that, he's got a good percentage of players that he can go to, and getting Kean Burnett back is big. Kean Burnett is awesome. He's just got to stay healthy. If he stays healthy, I think he could play in the NFL. If he doesn't stay healthy, well, then guess what? He won't play in the NFL. But having him alongside, just a big dude, you've got a lot of talent. The problem is, like I said, the offensive line. Where are they going to be? And we're going to talk about that all throughout the spring because that's going to be something interesting. Now, there's a lot of NBA mock draft type situations that are coming out, and we're going to talk about those a lot coming up here. Where Arizona stands with that, where Carter Bryant stands with that, because like I said, he's shooting up some draft boards, and again, that's not necessarily the best thing in the world. You don't want to necessarily see that if you're a Wildcat fan, but it is what it is. We're going to talk more about that. But on that note, though, very, very much appreciate you all making Locked On Wildcats your first listen of the day. I'm your host, Mike Luke. Bear down, back the A, and we will be back with you tomorrow.